It was a real cold winter day, and we were snowed in. In fact, we were iced in. And it had been going on for several days, and we were completely out of food. I had told the Lord, I don't have a job. I don't have any money. How am I going to take care of these children? If you don't provide for them, I will go back to California and not do this. And God had told me, if you'll do what I asked you to do, I will provide all your resources that you'll ever need. You won't have to pray another prayer for food or money. I will provide that as long as you don't let a penny of it stick to your fingers. So I had to trust him because I had nothing else. The kids kept wanting to know when I was going to feed them supper. And I knew that I'd have something I could come up with, but I didn't know what it would be. And just about dark, they had waited about as long as they could wait. And all of a sudden, one of them yelled out that there was somebody pulled up. And I went to the door, and it was an old brown station wagon. And this man got out, and he only had one arm. And his wife got out with him, and they came in the house and said they were looking for Mary Bennett. And I told them that was me, and where did they come from? How did they get here? And they said, we're from Maryland, and we've come to bring you some food. And their station wagon was absolutely packed with food. He invited me to bring the kids up to Maryland and stay a few days. And while I was up there, he introduced me to John Coleman and his family, mother and dad. Didn't think much more about it, but later on, Pastor Orweiler was his name. He said, why don't you let this youth leader come down there and hold a vacation Bible school for them?
When we went to Mary Bennett's in 1986, the road into Linefork was very difficult, much different than it is now. And we actually went over Black Mountain. So we drove over Black Mountain, and Susan was quite car sick when we got there. And Mary told us that we went over a big mountain, which was Black Mountain. Then we went over a few smaller mountains. Then we would come to Linefork. It would be okay once we got there. It was just surreal coming into Mary Bennett's place. And there was just this little slice of heaven carved into the mountains of Kentucky, and it was beyond my expectations of where we were going to go into, the Appalachian Mountains to look to see if there was a community that we could help. We ate on the porch, and I was getting to know Mary, and we looked over, and I said, Mary, tell me, what you do here. And she said, well, I just take in kids that many of them just been dropped off. Some are foster care, and some I've adopted. And she said, but I have a dream. And as we sat on the porch, she looked over at this field. She said, I have a dream of a house there, a log cabin. And in that log cabin, it would have a great big dining room table where all the kids could sit and eat. And each kid would have their own room, and there would be carpeting on the floor. So she just described this dream, and I looked over, and there was an old school bus parked there. There was a kind of an old barn that was leaning over, and an old horse there. And Mary's looking at this house and describing it like she's already living there.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I ever saw the gift of faith in a person.
Right.
And she looked at me and she said, you know what? I've already ordered the logs. And she had ordered the logs for a kid home. She says, but I don't have any money for a foundation, and I don't even have any men to build it, but I've ordered those logs.
Pastor John called me one day and said, have you started your home yet? And I said, no. He said, why? Well, I just haven't. And he said, well, you know that the longer you wait to fix the home, build a home, the longer the children will suffer. And he said, have you got the foundation in? I said, no. I didn't know I had to put a foundation in. And he said, oh yeah, you do. You have to put a foundation in. Why don't you ask your contractor how much he'll charge? And I'll raise the money to send you. Well, I didn't get around to asking the contractor for a day or two, and he said he could do it for $3,300. And without even telling John, because I didn't want to get more involved, I got a check in the mail for $3,600 from John. And I thought, now I have to do something.
The guys came down and they put up tents and started building, and then our first team of young people came about 2 weeks into the construction.
Well, the log cabin that she dreamed about.
There was a staff house
across
that was
the
there.
creek.
A new church was there. No, a staff house for the staff to live in, and a new church, and then the bunkhouse that was there.
Across the creek.
It was like paradise. It was like this dream of I mean, it was just a field before with, you know, an old school bus and a ramshackle building.
And a horse.
And a horse. and now it was not just the Sonshine Children's Center, but it was an active, alive church. It was a home, a staff home.
It was a community. It had thrived and grown into this little community.
Mary is the mother to the motherless, and
Right.
there's been so many kids, whether they were dropped off by their parents or the state would come or the foster care system would say, can you take care of this child? Whether it was
Right,
for one
right.
night or for the rest of their lives, Mary cared for them. And so, and it was the compassionate heart of a mother, and she had the ability to take a kid that might have had a pretty tough childhood, a really, really tough childhood, and bring them to the point through slowly loving and caring for them, for them to be able to trust her with the most endearing word, which is mom.
Before Mary Bennett, in some ways, almost seems like it doesn't exist, but it did. I grew up in foster care, so I wasn't adopted until I was 6 years old. 7 times in and out of foster care, and the 7th time is when I came to live with Mary Bennett, Mom, as I call her. My biological family, my mother has she's mentally challenged, and have a lot of aunts, uncles, people that are very mentally challenged, and some of that played a part of some of the abuse that I experienced and that my siblings experienced. Because of that scene and some of her boyfriends and friends of friends, kind of opened the doors for some unhealthy situations. All of my brothers and sisters were more or less molested and abused, beaten. So it's something that we weren't able to avoid. Once I met Mary Bennett, I knew that that's what I wanted. And prior to that, I had never been in a situation that was like, that brought up an emotion in me that made me want to cling to that.
Most kids came, I could say all came, with either one brown bag or a black garbage bag full of all their possessions. And they would be so dirty and ragged and worn and torn and just didn't fit. They were filthier. They didn't have, might be one sock, but not two. And so we would go through it, and I was very careful not to throw them away in front of them. We'd just lay them aside until the bag was empty. And I'd say, let's go upstairs. And upstairs I had a bedroom that had a lot of dressers in it. And every dresser drawer was full of new clothing, from socks to underwear to t-shirts to pants. And I would start picking out their sizes and lay them out for them to see. And I would always add a stuffed animal to it so that they'd have their own stuffed animal.
As I look back over that story, I think that, wow, that's what Jesus does in our life. He takes the best that we have, and he goes through it, and he applies the blood of the cross of redemption, of forgiveness and grace to it, to our lives. And he grabs us by the hand and takes us upstairs to the Father's room and says, here, I need to introduce you to the Father. and I need to give you some things to get started on your journey. And I look back and I realized that that's what Mary Bennett was doing in my life. That's what Mom was doing in my life.
So I came to this place and I was scared of Mary. I was like, that is one very strong woman. She knows where she's going and she's gonna get there. And so for even a couple of years, I'd call her on the phone and I'm like, is this gonna be okay? And but the beautiful thing was is her smile eventually began to disarm me. The blend that she has of, we will get the job done, and I'm not going to take any guff from any situation, to this tender woman, and these truths held in tension in the same person, is just such a beautiful picture of Christ's love for us. On the one hand, there is justice, and we have to toe the line. On the other hand, there are these hands of grace that say, no matter where you are, I can bring these two together and reconcile them. And I've learned so much just by watching her do that, even as I parent my own children. When I would look at impossible situations here, she would see possibilities. And when I would go back as a leader, there was nothing that I couldn't imagine when I would leave this place, because there was nothing that Mary couldn't imagine. If God told her to do something, whether it was building a building, or whether it was taking in a new child, or whether it was taking in a child that had severe disabilities, I would look at that and say, just practically, this isn't gonna happen. This is not gonna be a reality. But Mary looked at it and said, oh, my God's big enough. And so as a leader, I'd look at that and I'd say, how do I apply that to my leadership, my situation? And my God became so much larger because of Mary Bennett. I saw who God really was in comparison to how small he was in my mind.
We did what was called legacy coaching. And we looked at the past in order to see what the legacy would be tomorrow. And her mother actually had the dream for this house. Her mother said, Mary, we need a new spot. You need, in fact, she said, you need a new place to build across the road. And so you see the generations perhaps have the dream but don't see it fulfilled. God so wisely gives a dream that gives birth to another dream, that gives birth to another dream. And so we see the sequencing of his heart and his spirit working within her, that now I think she's more amazed than anybody else.
I see me being kind to my children and having moments with them, quality time. I see that I'm undoing some of the static that was pushed into my life. And I'm very aware still of like the impact that one person had on my life. I mean, I have times where I'm not patient, I'm not kind, but overall, I can't get away from what just happened, you know? And where I would be if someone didn't say yes.
I think her dreams are beyond her life. And so for us now to pay attention to those and desire those and to see where they lead is really the important part of where we fit in now.
The foundation really is an umbrella that covers the work that has started with Mary Bennett and has these different arms. But one of those arms is Sonshine Children's Center, which is the home, the log house that I grew up in, that's been made available for children to come in and experience the presence of God and to bring their pain with them and be forced to do something with it. And they will either connect or disconnect. And it's our prayer and hope that every child that comes in will learn how to connect their pain to the presence of God. As we speak, there's a crew building our new distribution center. And we've distributed well over 1 million pounds of food and clothing to the area. Being the hands and feet of Jesus, and within the next couple of months, we'll probably have another 100,000 pounds of food that comes through. And something that I've picked up on through working alongside Mary Bennett, my mom, is that it's not about the food, and it's not about the refrigerators or the appliances. It's about the people who put their hands out to receive what you give them. And it's so much more than just what they receive in their hands. It's an opportunity to connect with people.
We now carry something that will be multiplied year after year after year. The hope is, and the dream is, that we're going to see this expand because she's imparted to each of us.
Sonshine is here because of people that have reached out and shared their lives with us. I would like for anyone to feel free to come and meet these kids, see our facility, share some time with us, and you'll be welcome, you'll be cared for, and we'll enjoy your time here, and you will enjoy it. This is, to us, the eye of the storm. There's not much beauty in the world that you can just see. But there's a peace here, there's a security here for the children. There's a calmness in their lives. They're very, very intelligent young people that the world may not have known as intelligent, not without Sonshine, because we gave them a chance.